Well, my playing of games is way ahead of my YouTube channel again, so who's up for another multi-review video so I can catch up? I fucking am. Let's go. First up is Inside. This is another indie game that's bound to start up the old games as art debate. Every fucker on both sides of the argument is sick of hearing about it by now, but still the debate goes on. Now, I don't know this for sure because I actively avoid this shit, but I'm guessing there's plenty of, oh, is this a game? Oh, but what is a game? Going on when this came out, but I really don't give a shit about that. I like games and I like art. I don't think they're the same thing, but I like them both. So it doesn't matter what this is. What matters is it any fucking good? The answer is yeah, it's really fucking good. The first thing that grabbed me about this game was the art style. I love the low-key style of the game as well as the way it uses contrast and lighting and fog and all that shit, and everything is combined so well to create such an awesome atmosphere. It's really incredible what they've done. The animations are fantastic too. Every motion is completely believable. The world portrayed by the game is really creepy and weird. It's hard to tell exactly what the setting is. It seems to be a mix of post-apocalyptic and dystopian, and you play as a runaway being chased by what appears to be government agents or something, but the world is all broken down and decaying, and it seems like things are completely fucked up. It's really hard to tell what's actually going on. The game doesn't really give a lot away. It doesn't tell you what's going on in the story. It doesn't even tell you the controls. Fortunately, unlike the story, the controls are really simple, as are the puzzles. I mean, I hesitate to even call them puzzles. They're more like obstacles, really. The solutions are really obvious and occasionally call for a little trial and error, but nothing too complicated, really. The game is really short, somewhere between 2 and 3 hours, but it has a lot packed in, and there really isn't any filler. Length doesn't dictate how good a game is. All hours are not created equal, but this is much shorter than the games most people are used to, so beware if you're going to give it a go. I'm glad I played Inside. It's not the kind of game I'd usually play, to be honest, but well worth a playthrough, I thought. Next up is The Witness. The game is really pretty. The art style is really nice, and the island you're stuck on is laid out so that you have a great view from wherever you're standing. The game basically involves solving a bunch of puzzles, which is fun at first, but there's only really one type of puzzle, and the game is really fucking long, like 13 hours or more of just solving puzzles. And the puzzle is just like drawing a line correctly. I don't really feel like they were fun enough to keep the game interesting for that much time. The problem with this game is it's challenging enough that I wanted to beat it. And by that, I mean I wanted to beat the game. not I wanted to have a wank. It wasn't that challenging. It was challenging enough that I wanted to beat the game, but it wasn't entertaining enough to enjoy for as long as the game is. So in the end, I ended up beating, and again, I'm talking about beating the game. I ended up beating it not for enjoyment, but because I wanted to prove to myself that I could. The final 5 or 6... oh fuck it, I'm keeping it in. The final 5 or 6 hours were not fun. They were just me being stubborn and refusing to give up. But actually I wanted to do anything but sit there playing the fucking Witness. So although I really genuinely did enjoy the first half of the game, I'm just going to remember it as a tedious fucking slog, drawing line after line in endless, almost identical puzzles, which is kind of my own fault, because if I'd have just dropped the game when it got boring, I wouldn't have had this problem. But it was a challenge, so I had to win, and that's it at the end of the day. Next up, SteamWorld Heist. This is a pretty interesting game. It's kind of like a 2D XCOM where you and the enemies take it in turns to move around and get into cover and shoot each other and everything. It's kind of a novel idea, and it's pretty fun to play too. It has a nice presentation as well. The graphics and animation are all really good. It has a hat system, which is kind of cringeworthy. Like, the whole lol hats thing is over a decade old at this point, and we are long past the stage where anyone gives a shit about it, but it's in the game because, ooh, wacky. Unfortunately, despite playing and looking great, the whole experience is let down by the structure of the game. Firstly, the whole thing is procedurally generated, which makes every level feel exactly the same, despite technically having a different layout each time. It doesn't have the pacing of a handcrafted game, and it suffers because of it. Another problem is the tile sets. I played for around 2 hours, but only ever saw one tile set that whole time. Maybe there are other tile sets later in the game, but with no variety at the start, the whole thing feels very dull and very repetitive from the very beginning. Another issue is the way the level select screen works. You kind of have a map with different levels that you unlock by doing other levels, and a 3-star rating system for each level, which you can replay as many times as you like. This ruins any chance of the game feeling real. If you beat a level, it doesn't stay beaten, it just sits there like nothing ever happened. Nothing you do really affects anything except unlocks. The structure reminded me so much of a mobile game that I actually looked it up, and I found out that this actually is a mobile game, which explains a lot about why it is the way it is. It's a shame, because the Worms meets XCOM gameplay is actually a lot of fun and would be great in a different game, but having to cater to 5 minutes on a bus playstyles really detracts from the game's potential. So ultimately, I've just dropped it now. That's enough. That's enough mobile games for one lifetime, thanks. So yeah, there we go. If you're still watching, I guess you enjoyed what you saw. There's plenty more videos coming soon, so you can subscribe to see those. And there's plenty already on the channel too, if you don't want to wait for that. See ya.